Cool, great. So, another really good, well answered sort of question, and this topic of preconditions sits within, yes, sits within the question of things we do before we take on an engagement. So well done. I mean, you have if you remember things we do before we under the chapter of ethics and acceptance, before we finally accept an audit, we have the preconditions. And we have things like pre-clearance, speaking to the ex-auditors, and all of that, risk and budget. But this is the key point with preconditions, right? This topic of preconditions is focusing very much on the framework which you talk about, and just this awareness that management are aware of what their responsibilities are, and that they're willing to give us access to everything we need. So you highlight all three key areas. There's a fourth one about internal control that, if you like, that management are also aware of their responsibility for putting in place some sort of internal control system for you to be able to use as a reference point. But those are the big ones. So a range of matters. Again, you talked about five. But you didn't need. It's just trying to understand the organization, And again, it's kind of almost a pestle stroke porter argument. I think I highlighted it earlier on. Pestle, Porter. Porter very much tells us to look at this as the organization. What's the competition? Threat of new entry. Who are your power suppliers, power customers? Um, yeah, I think that's suppliers, customers, threat of new entry, existing competition, if you like. So there's all that, and then there's just everything else. What's happening economically in the area? What's the nature of the industry? What are the tech changes, legal issues affecting the organization, that area? Just getting an understanding. Your ratios are perfect. They're just what they are. You've calculated everything brilliantly. So let's quickly breeze through your answers again, and again, all of them very, very clear. Now, there's just one answer. We'll go to. I won't highlight it here. I'll highlight when we open the mark scheme. That whenever you're dealing with scenarios where people need to get some kind of target, then that's always a risk. Also, first time audit's always a risk. So you highlight the issue here is, if you remember Red Smith, sales manipulation, potential overstatement. So when we have overstatement of revenues, we're talking about cutoff. That's really the best way to do it. Overstate, and you kind of talk about it. You actually talk about bringing in. You're trying to include sales which occur after the year end. So it's a good. You understand exactly what you're doing. Um, the next topic really is gross profit has increased significantly while the gross profit has increased significantly while profit as much. So really, we can see that there's a possible classification issue here going on, right? So exactly like you say, if you like, we were really trying to understand why there's a difference. So again, like you say, check a sample, ensure that expenses are complete. And just sort of looking year to year, carrying out some analytical reviews. Again, receivable days have increased, so we're thinking straight away potential bad debts. So you say here, review the age debts and check the bank to see. So we're looking at also really the journal of provision. There's also an option, something else for you to also include in there. Then you have the FD who has, and this is a big one, the key point here is he's included these extra overheads as production costs, so the chances are they're overvalued. So we need to review these additional overheads. And what again you have very good is like you understand this. You say this could discuss with management the rationale, inquire of management the rationale for this, and professional skepticism all the way. And inventory days again, obsolete inventory. So very quickly looking at some of the answers there. Um, very quickly, we see here that we are talking about, 162. Yes, you highlight, just to highlight, the only thing that you could have added was this, the fact that they now know that they feel under pressure. So that's a risk. So it's very much about professional skepticism and being very aware um, of what's going on. So that's kind of something, that's kind of something to think about. And then you've mentioned this, the generous sales team that will lead to sales cutoff. This is what we talked about here. Um, here we have the here we have this what we talked about, this gross profit margin, the misstatement, misclassification might be going on over there, and the classification this the classification of cost between cost of sales and operating will be compared with prior year to ensure consistency. That's what we're trying to do. Make sure that that's in the right place. Excuse me. Um, Inventory valuation, we talked about that risk of this. You've mentioned that already. Receivable days, literally word for word. They're sort of you're picking up on that fact, like you said, extended post-year cash receipts, reviewing the debtors list, and they highlight current ratios have gotten worse. So really, potential going concern, but as long as it's disclosed. So the question is the risk of inadequate disclosure of going concern? So something to think about. So detailed going concern testing, but that's an extra and additional one. So again, I think some really good grades, some good work, and we'll move on to the next question.